just as Rod was sharing then, I went, this is really taking vulnerability to the next level for both of us, to have our relationship on display here today and sharing our most intimate details with you all. As I shared earlier, one of the things that made a difference for me was about being curious about men, but also understanding the ways that men are different to women. So I'll give you a small example because this has been profound for me, and I've also seen it be profound with clients I've worked with. So I'm sure everybody's heard the saying that men are single-focused, and women, we have diffuse awareness. So if we go back to the times of being hunters and gatherers, of course men need to be single-focused. If they're hunting a wild animal, they need to be absolutely on track, just tuned in to that wild animal, not distracted by anything else, not going anywhere else. They just need to be there, making sure they're going to hit their target. Women, we're gatherers in the hunter-gatherer world, so we need to be able to go, oh, there's some fruits, oh, and some berries, oh, and this and that. And so that diffuse awareness actually supports our capacity to gather. And so for me, I remember at different times in past relationships wondering why men would forget things or why they wouldn't do the things they said they were going to do. And then I came to this learning around single focus and diffuse awareness, and suddenly it made sense for me. Of course men forget things because a single focused being is on target, has a mission, this is where they're going. And anything that is not in fulfillment of that mission is put to the side. And one thing I know that I've done, I see a lot of women do, when a man's busy, to go, oh, hey, honey, and can you do this as well? Do you think he's going to remember it? Whereas if you share with him how you feel, share with him what you need, ask him for things in a quiet moment, actually have an understanding of who he is, then you give him a chance to win. Men actually love being able to win. They love being appreciated. But asking him to do 5 things as he runs out the door for something else is actually setting him up to fail, setting you both up to fail. So for me, when I came to understand a man's single-focused nature, I then got okay with the fact that, oh yeah, sometimes he won't remember. Rod actually has a really bad memory, so that's been another learning in our relationship. But for me, there's this acceptance that, yeah, he has a bad memory. And so I know that sometimes I will have to remind him of things. Accepting somebody as they are is what changes people. Trying to change somebody does not change them. Can you feel the difference? Yeah. If I tried to make Rod have a good memory, I did actually buy some ginkgo biloba for that, but that's kind of a side point. But if I tried to make him have a good memory, there'd be this sense that I didn't accept him. There'd be a sense that who he is not good enough. Whereas accepting that he has a bad memory, that's part of accepting all of who he is. And I see this a lot at women's workshops and women's retreats where women's questions are often asked from a place of, well, how can I get him to be a better man? How can I get him to do things differently? How can I get him to show up better? And I think women would be curious to know that men never ask those questions. Because men's single-focused nature means when they're at a workshop, they're showing up for themselves. So the fact that men are able to focus on themselves, that's actually something that we as women can learn and benefit from. That when we show up somewhere, we're there for ourselves. I also know that the more I accept me, the more I accept Rod, the more I accept everybody else. So the journey that I mentioned earlier of me falling into myself in this relationship, that journey of falling into myself has been so beautiful and painful and vulnerable and excruciating and blissful. It's been everything. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because for me, it's the fulfillment of something I've always longed for. And falling into myself means that I'm here for me and for Rod, but I'm here for me. And I'm going to show my feelings. I'm going to express myself. I'm going to be the dorky, goofy version of Martina, or I'll be the sexy version of Martina, or I'll be the sensual version, I'll be the wise version, I'll be the falling apart in a mess version. If I can be all of Martina in this relationship, then I've chosen me. And when I choose me, then I give him the opportunity to choose me. Whereas if I only give him selective parts of me, you know, the kind of the pretty, the sensual, the wise, let's just give him those ones, and I'll separate out all the, you know, the other parts, the dorky, the goofy, the messy, the, you know, critical and judging. When I separate, then I separate from connection, I separate from intimacy. And it's also an indication that I'm not choosing me. And if I don't choose me, then he won't choose me. And within the first, let's say, 6 months of our relationship, I came to the place of really knowing that I wanted this relationship to be a big part of my future. I came to the place of, yes, I want to go deeper with this man. I want this relationship. I love him. I know I love him. And I know that I want to build our lives together. And Rod wasn't quite there yet, which was very painful. And we had a number of excruciating conversations where I was tipping into that territory that was old familiar territory for me of like, I love you. Do you love me? How do you feel about me? I was tipping into that kind of territory. And then I started to go, oh, we've been here before, Martina. This leads one way. It means that if I go into that place of like, do you choose me? Do you choose me? Do you want me? If I go to that place, there's only one place he can go to, and that's to leave. And so fortunately, I caught myself and went, what's the advice you give everybody else, Martina? Falling inside. Okay. So each time I had an uncomfortable moment with Rod, and we're both incredibly transparent with each other. So Rod would be saying things to me like, I'm just not sure how I feel. And I'd be like, oh, I love that he's so honest, and oh, it hurts so much. And why can't he just tell some lies? But no, I'm glad he doesn't tell any lies. All of those difficult conversations for me, I came back to this place of fall into myself. What do I need to do to choose me? And that would be nurturing and nourishing myself, taking care of myself, going for walks, having a bath, spending time dancing, spending time with girlfriends, having the conversations I needed to have with girlfriends. Some of the crazy stuff that I wanted to say to Rod, to like download that with a girlfriend so that I'm not like, oh, psycho woman, I've planned our future together. So insecurity comes up when we're getting to know people. Insecurity comes up on the journey of learning how to love and create with somebody. But if I take all of my insecurity and dump it onto the other person, it doesn't build connection. There were places that I needed to walk through for myself. I needed to get more comfortable feeling vulnerable. I needed to be okay with going, I love this man, and I don't know whether he loves me or not. And of course, I needed to put some parameters around it for myself to say, okay, let's see what happens over the next 3 months. Let's see what happens over the next 6 months. At some point, our connection may need to fall away, or at some point, it may change. So there were days and a few weeks of being very vulnerable in that and feeling quite exposed. But what happened was I gave him space. I gave him space to feel. So what often happens when a woman feels a lot of love in her body, it's like, oh, there's all this love, I've got to give it to him now. If I try and push my love onto him, there's no space for him to receive that. Men need space to be able to receive. I'll use an example from a couple I've worked with where I remember the woman, they had been together maybe 20 to 30 years, but I remember the woman saying that I do all these things to show him my love. It's like, I cook meals and I take care of the house and I take care of the children and I'm sexually available and I'm this and I'm this and I'm this. And yet there was a quality of desperation in her love. There was this sense of like, I have to do all this to prove my love to him. And as I watched the body language between them, as I listened to the communication between them, I recognized that she was so busy trying to give her love, trying to prove her love, trying to have him receive all that, that there was actually no space for the man's feelings. There was no space for him to be. There was no space for him to receive. And then I had this vision of fingers being stuck in somewhere too soon. So what I mean by this is if we go back to the polarity conversation from earlier where the woman's vagina is her negative polarity, the man's heart is his negative polarity. So I'm sure everyone here has had the experience of trying to put fingers in a vagina too soon. It's like, ouch, too much, go away. So fingers in the negative polarity before it's ready hurts. Fingers in the vagina before we're ready is painful. It's uncomfortable if there's no lubrication, if there's no openness of the heart, if there's no connection built. So the same sensitivity that we as women have in our vagina, men have that kind of sensitivity at their heart. The heart is the man's negative polarity, so that's where he receives energy in. So every time a woman goes, why aren't you receiving my love? Or how do you feel? How do you feel? Tell me everything. It's essentially sticking the fingers into his heart too soon. It's equivalent of the fingers in the vagina too soon, because there's that sense of not respecting him, not respecting his space, and not being respectful of the sensitivity of his heart. Can I just see a show of hands if that makes sense to you? Yeah. And I think this is a topic, the sensitivity of a man's heart. It's actually something that was a significant turning point and transformation for me, because I grew up thinking that women were the sensitive ones. I thought we were the ones having all the feelings and having all the emotions, and that men were just like strong and tough. What I came to understand is that men are strong and tough on the outside, but super, super, super sensitive inside and very sensitive around their hearts. We as women are given language to communicate. We're encouraged to share with our girlfriends, our mothers, our sisters. Whereas men are not given the same tools, they're not given the same vocabulary, they're often shut down for having feelings. And so in order to connect with a man's heart, he needs to know that he's safe with you. So the same as we're looking to see if a man's safe before we open up sexually, he's looking to see if his feelings will be respected, to see if there's safety for his sensitivity. So when I fell back into myself, there's a sense that I created safety for Rod's feelings. I wasn't trying to penetrate or open his heart before it was ready. And that's what I saw in the couple that I mentioned before, is that when a woman tries to push her love onto a man, there's no opportunity for receiving. So in terms of how men give and receive love, it's critical to allow space for a man to receive in his fashion, to not pressure him. And in actual fact, falling into yourself as a woman will give him the space to be able to receive you. And we spoke previously about sex. Sex is a big part of how a man shows and gives his love. And we can also support men by communicating more fully who we are. Because the woman who's conditioned herself to take care of all of her own needs and to be fully out there in the world on her own is often nervous to share her needs with a man. And when we keep that information from a man, then we don't give him the opportunity to give us love in a way that will serve us. The other thing that's critical for men is appreciation. Right? Show your appreciation. Let him know how much you appreciate everything he does, from the smallest things to the big things. Because often we're expecting men to give to us based on some unrealistic set of expectations. Women generally have an unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and then we project the unrealistic expectations for ourselves onto men, and then there's no chance for the man to win. Whereas when we share with him what's important to us, who we are, how we feel, we give him opportunities to win. And then in that space, we also need to remember to appreciate when he remembers, to appreciate when he follows through, appreciate when he does those random beautiful things that touch your heart. Because the gifts and the offerings are always there. Sometimes we forget to see them. I'm going to hand over to Rod so he can share a little more from his perspective of giving and receiving love.
Rod's going to be shocked because he really needs to pee. We're going to have a little break after this. Yeah, like for me, that experience at the start of our relationship was incredibly powerful. Like to hear the "I love you," and then be going like, "Oh, fuck, I'm not ready to say that. What do I do?" So I knew I was causing that awkward moment that we all cringe in a movie. Like, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm there cringing, going, "Shit, what do I do with this?" And so I chose just to be honest. And what I received back was that space. Like as a man, it takes me a little bit longer to process how I feel than it does for a woman. They seem to come up spontaneously, instant, and frequently for her. can take days for me to realize I'm having a feeling. Like it's not as fast. So having that space gave me the feeling of being loved, being accepted for who I actually was. And in that moment then, I actually had the room to sit down and go, how do I actually feel? And just to experience that. Then to experience that, oh yeah, right. Oh, I do love her. I miss her when she's not around. I miss her when she's gone. Oh, I miss her when we don't talk at night. Like having that space just to recognize. Like it was a slow burn, it was a slow dance, but I finally realized. I felt pretty clever. And so just having that and having the space to have the feeling meant that I actually chose to dive into the relationship. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that most women want their man to choose them. Yeah? Yeah. And so what happens when, for me, like if my partner dives in too fast, there isn't an opportunity to choose. That when she's pressuring and harassing, which she doesn't do, but it's definitely happened in the past, there's a sense of, oh shit, I've got no choice. I'm either I'm out of here, or okay, yeah, fine, I'll do that. I love you. Like it's not an empowered choice, and that means that my partner misses out on feeling my love, feeling me choose her. And there's something incredibly powerful for a woman in terms of safety and trustability when her man chooses her. And it's beautiful as a man to experience choosing your woman. Like it's really powerful, and it changes the foundation of the connection between the two people. And that then permeates throughout the relationship. And so that recognition of the difference between a man and a woman, and how that, for me, on how I show up to our relationship is way different to how Martina shows up to our relationship. Just learning to actually love the differences that we have instead of creating a disconnect there. I can recognize at times where, okay, maybe I need to process a little faster. Martina can recognize, I need to just give him some space to feel into this. And there's beauty in learning to love the differences. Something shifts and changes when I stop focusing on what it is that I need or want to get from this relationship, and I start to love and respect the qualities that my partner has. And that just fosters and nurtures more growth of each other loving, choosing, and respecting the differences between us. And as that builds, it becomes part of the foundation of the relationship. How do I choose to love my partner more? How do I choose to love her more fully? What can I choose so she'll feel more loved, more felt? That what can I offer, what can I give, instead of what do I need and what can I take? And so that feeling of being loved inspired me as a man to show up, to be the best version of me that I can be. It became inspiration. So instead of her harassing me to be the man that she wants, she inspired me to be the man, not only that she wants, but who I really want to be. I haven't met any men that go, God, I want to be a shit version of me. They always want to be the best version of themselves. And for me, being the best version of me is exciting. And being inspired by my woman to be the best version of me feels amazing. And it looks like being loved for who I am. That is the most inspiration I need. Thank you.